Good evening and thank you for joining us. 18 more compliance orders and written notifications have been issued against Thunder Bay's largest nursing home. The 480-bed Hogarth Riverview Manor, operated by St. Joseph's Care Group, has already been under third-party management for the past year, but some recent visits by Ministry of Health inspectors again revealed issues at the facility. Alana Pickrell tells us what they found.
A number of incidents were reported by the ministry's inspection report, which put into question the care of all 480 residents at Hogarth Riverview Manor. The incidents included one unspecific unit where most of the residents' continence products were completely saturated with urine, including their clothing and bedding, an abusive verbal exchange from staff members, and some residents not getting their scheduled medication. Despite the allegations, St. Joe's CEO Tracy Buckler says as a whole, the long-term care facility is well on its way to improvement.
We did full-scale education last year as an example, so all of our staff were re-educated. We made sure that everything was in place for appropriate training. So I think what we're seeing now a year later are not necessarily systemic issues throughout the home, but more specific areas that we need to pay attention to on a more individualized basis.
Buckler adds when there are specific concerns with individuals, they try to address the issue with family members and the resident, instead of turning it into a problem that will impact the entire building. HRM has been under third-party management for a year now when the Ministry of Health stepped in, issuing a mandatory management order. And although Buckler says the number of issues and incidents have decreased significantly since managers with extended care assist were brought in, there is no end date to their third-party management.
Now, I'm quite clear that one thing that we need to make sure we have in place at Hogarth Riverview Manor is a permanent administrator. And I don't believe that the Ministry of Health would be interested in lifting our mandatory management order until we've achieved some stability in our home.
There is a compliance order currently against HRM requiring the home to ensure residents are protected from abuse and neglect. Alana Pickrell, TBT News.
Thunder Bay Police continue to hold a scene where a body was found yesterday. It was discovered in the afternoon by a passerby near a walking trail in the Current River area near the Strathcona Golf Course. Police are offering up little information about the body, saying only that a post-mortem exam has been scheduled for Saturday in Toronto. They say investigators will have more information to share at that time. The Ontario Fire Marshal's Office has released more information about a fire that claimed 2 lives last week. The flames broke out around 2 in the morning on October 28th and destroyed a mobile home on Taylor Drive off Roslyn Road. A man and a woman both died as a result of the blaze. Their names haven't been released by authorities. Fire Marshal investigator Mike Rushton has determined that the blaze started by accident in the living room, but he's not able to release any more information until he completes his probe. He's also waiting for official results from the coroner's investigation. Fire officials say it appears a working smoke alarm was not in place, which likely played a role in the tragedy. The suspect in last week's homicide on Dufferin Street will be back in court tomorrow. 25-year-old Peter Kiash faces multiple charges. Officers responded to an assault call at this apartment on the evening of October 29th and found an unresponsive female victim. 32-year-old Irene Barkman was transported to hospital with serious injuries. City police say she died 2 days later. Kiash was originally charged with threats to kill, forcible confinement, and attempted murder, but that third charge has now been upgraded to second-degree murder. Police haven't released any details about the incident except that the accused and victim were known to one another. Officers from the Ontario Provincial Police, Ministry of Natural Resources, and Ministry of Transportation got together today to offer safety tips for those who drive off-road vehicles and snowmobiles. An information booth was set up at Canadian Tire on Arthur Street. The OPP says off-road incidents in its jurisdiction led to 22 deaths in 2017 and 18 more so far this year. The investigations revealed alcohol consumption, high speeds, lack of experience, and overall carelessness played significant roles in many of those crashes. And with the cold weather on its way, police want all riders to enjoy winter activities safely.
Fall season, so the ORVs are still in full swing, and coming into the winter, we're here for the motorized snow vehicles as well, trying to get the message across. So we're trying to combine the two together just to have that messaging put out to the public and make people ready, have people ready for the upcoming season.
The OPP urges riders to always check ice conditions before driving on frozen lakes and to take extra care on slippery roads and trails. Well, if you bought legal marijuana through Ontario's online cannabis retailer, your personal information may be at risk. Almost 4,500 customers have been compromised in a data breach through the Canada Post website. Shipping data was reportedly accessed by a customer of the Ontario Cannabis Store. It's believed that names, addresses, and postal codes were compromised. Now, Canada Post believes the person who accessed the information only shared it with the Crown Corporation and deleted it immediately afterwards. Buying pot online is currently the only way for customers to access legal marijuana in the province. The Trudeau government has announced funding to help counter Ontario's decision to scrap the cap-and-trade system. Environment Minister Catherine McKenna says the Liberals will provide $420 million to institutions that no longer receive incentives from the province. That means schools, hospitals, and transit services will all get federal assistance to help reduce greenhouse gas emissions. This money will come from a nationwide $2 billion fund that was previously announced by Ottawa. Nearly 60 Westmount Public School students paid respect to Canada's fallen war heroes today. The kids cleaned military headstones at Mountain View Cemetery. Shane Pasquino has the story.
This Remembrance Day marks 100 years since the First World War ended, and although it was well before these 6th, 7th, and 8th graders' time, they are learning about why it's important to honor the brave soldiers who paid the ultimate sacrifice for our country. Westmount Public School students and staff initiated the graveside cleaning program back in 2013, as it is a common practice for many allied cities to do in Europe. 8th grade student Haley Scott says it's a way for her and her peers to get a better understanding of these special men and women.
We were able to read all about it and watch different videos at school, but I think coming here we get to connect and see names and how young some people were. It was a real event and all this stuff did happen, and that there are people who were lost from their families and didn't get to go back home.
They really connect with some of the ages of the soldiers and some of the names that they've found. We've had students that have come back and wanted to essentially adopt a soldier and come back year after year and look after their stone, and others were amazed that they were the same ages as some of their brothers and sisters. So it becomes very real for them at this point.
Second World War veteran and member of the Branch 5 Legion, Roy Lamore, says it's wonderful to see the students coming back year after year. He adds it's important for the younger generations to continue to learn about and honor the soldiers.
It's the students, the children, there's where it's got to be, the lesson has got to be taught, is in that level. If that individual down there was alive, it could come up and shake your hand and be so proud of what he's doing and what they're doing.
The students spent nearly 2 hours cleaning the headstones. After each was complete, they left a poppy or Canadian flag to pay their respects. Shane Pasquino, TBT News.
The past met the present at a ceremony today at the Regional Health Sciences Centre. A monument was unveiled to commemorate the former Port Arthur General Hospital. Corey Nordstrom has more.
3 stone blocks previously on the face of the Port Arthur General Hospital are now on permanent display at Thunder Bay Regional. Longtime nurse at PAGH, Shirley King, asked that the blocks be saved during the building's demolition, and she began fundraising to build the monument in 2012. 6 years and about $25,000 later, King describes her emotions seeing the monument finally coming to fruition.
Accomplished and great pride, because I graduated from the General back in 1958. So it's a passion for me.
Port Arthur General was closed when the new regional hospital opened in 2004, and the building was torn down 6 years later. The hospital had seen a lot of history during its 74 years in operation. Health Sciences Foundation Director Brian McKinnon says, like many in the city, the General meant a lot to him.
Well, I was born there. Had a couple of operations there. I think that everybody does, little things. Personally, my wife worked there for a number of years. In fact, I saw Dr. Lai here earlier. My wife and Dr. Lai started the cardiac rehab program, so I have a personal affinity for the hospital for many, many years.
King began her nursing career at Port Arthur General and was around for a number of innovations at the hospital. She says becoming a nurse was one of the finest things she's ever done and hopes the monument is an uplifting symbol for future nurses.
It's an inspiration to young people, to nursing, and then it tells you our history. Like, you know, we've come a long way. When Sherry mentioned the fact of the different things that happened at the General, that's, you know, that's pretty powerful.
Corey Nordstrom, TBT News.
The Ontario Native Women's Association has launched a new project called Building Our Bundles. It focuses on the strengths of Indigenous women through storytelling. It kicked off this afternoon with an exhibit at the Thunder Bay Art Gallery. The purpose of the project is to create Indigenous-focused learning material for educators and students with a focus on Ojibwe women from the Robinson-Superior region. The exhibit features artwork that highlights the women. It also involves storytelling, which is something ONWA's executive director feels is crucial to accurately portray the history of Indigenous women.
It's about retelling our story from a strength-based perspective and not always focusing on the deficits of our history and really looking at the strengths of Indigenous women and the Indigenous community.
The stories of our communities and our region define who we are, and they give depth to who we will be in the future.
The exhibit will be on display until December 2nd.
Oh, a shame people have been